better e-health across continents. And we will share some experiences from Norwegian actors on how we can improve e-health. And we say across continents because we focus both on Europe and Africa. Most of us come from a project, EU project, Coordination and Support Action, funded by the Horizon 2020, called Better e-Health, which aims to improve e-health in Africa. But we also see that there is also possibilities or lessons to be learned from Africa for Europe. Today, we are honored to have Austin Davis with us from NORAD, Jens Kosbol from University of Oslo, Segam Mengiste from University of Southeastern Norway, and Dilis Larbi from Norwegian Center for eHealth Research. And it will be me that moderate this session. My name is Konstantinos Antipas. I'm a researcher at Sintef Digital, but also have a 20% position at the Norwegian Center for eHealth Research. The format will be that we'll first have an introduction, a short introduction from each of our presenters, and then we will discuss some of the issues that are relevant. Just a very short introduction about Sintef and the relevant global health activities. As you might know, Sintef is an independent non-for-profit research institute based in Trondheim, but also with offices in other places. Our key roles in society is, of course, research and innovation, but also building and maintaining research infrastructure, commercialization, and also something that is relevant for our project, the Better Health Project, is also that we offer advice and knowledge that informs policy, public debate and policy making. Many employees, 2,000 employees, and we are also one of Europe's largest independent research organizations. Our vision is technology for a better society, with expertise from the ocean space to outer space. And somewhere there, in between the ocean and the space, there's also human beings. And that's where this session will focus also. And I'll also mention some relevant projects that we have related to global health. Most people know that Sintef is very active in technology, but we are in Norway. But also we have a tradition of global health projects. It starts with assistive technology, with many projects related to that. And a relevant example is monitoring or screening for hearing problems for children. And we have 2 projects that do that with pilot testing in Tanzania, where we screen kids for hearing problems with the help of a tablet-based game. We also are collaborating with the World Health Organization on assistive technology and access to assistive technology. And we are now collecting data from almost 20 countries on use of assistive technology. And we are contributing to the report, the global report on assistive technology. And also from access to assistive technology, we also go to access to health services with relevant projects there, but also more technology-oriented like digitalization and e-health, for example, use of virtual ICU with a pilot in Malawi. But without going into details into that, I will go to the Better Health Project, which is the reason we have this session today. The European Commission, as they usually do with, as they always do with these calls, they publish a theme, and in this case, they were asking for supporting deployment of eHealth in low and lower middle income countries in Africa for better health outcomes. And their focus was on national strategies, but also national e-health policies, inclusions of stakeholders, but also they were asking us to map the existing e-health solutions and connect with existing networking activities. So many applications were there, 28, and only our application was granted this fund to run this project that we run for 2 years. It started in December 2021 and we finished in January 2022. And our aim is to increase international cooperation in eHealth, but also very important for us is to inform and strengthen eHealth stakeholders. And that is, we hope that this will help them to take part in policy making, and this will lead to better eHealth policies. Our concept is that how to improve eHealth policy, to improve health, you need to have to take into consideration several factors. You have to look at what already exists out there, and that means you have to look what is existing eHealth solutions and learn from them. And that's why we create a register of eHealth solutions in African countries. But you should also look at the existing eHealth policies and then try to learn from this. And also make these, of course, available to everybody so they can also others access this data and learn from this. And we've been also discussing whether this should be in collaboration with the World Health Organization and existing registries that they have, and how we can learn from each other and share information. Another important factor to improve eHealth policy is, of course, the human beings, those that the eHealth policy is created for, those that they use the eHealth policy, and those are from the patients, but also health professionals, hospital managers, and the authorities. Another very important factor worldwide, but particularly in Africa and in low and lower middle income countries, is of course the technical factors. Interoperability and standardization, we are aware of these issues. And of course the technical infrastructure, that is where the biggest problems are in our collaborating countries. And then, of course, there are factors related directly to the policy. And those are legal issues and financial issues. And those are also our outcomes from this project. We will try to create a roadmap for eHealth policy and suggest it to the collaborating countries. Also make it available. We hope that it will be relevant for more countries. We are in our project working, they're not partners in our project, but we are working with the Ministries of Health of 4 African countries. And we also hope to in contact with other Ministries of Health in other African countries. And the collaborating countries is Ethiopia, it's Ghana, Malawi, and Tunisia. And in addition, we are establishing 4 regional hubs in the collaborating countries, which we hope that will connect us with the eHealth stakeholders in the country, with the eHealth stakeholders in the countries around them. But we also hope that they will take the message further and will continue with those activities after the project is finished. Those are our partners. We have SFAX, it's a health tech cluster from Tunisia. We have Ghana Health Service, which is like a directorate related to, directly connected to the Ministry of Health of Ghana. We have the University of Jimma, University of Gondar from Ethiopia. We have HISP Malawi in Malawi. And we are CINTEF, eHealth Research Center for eHealth Research, sorry, Norwegian Center for eHealth Research, University of Southern East Norway, University of Oslo, and 2 other partners, SMEs, one from the Netherlands and one from Belgium. Before we go into discussion, we have, I would like to present Austin Davis. He's senior advisor at NORAD, the Norwegian Agency for Development. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Very nice to be here. I have to start with an admission. I'm not an eHealth expert or an IT expert, but I do work. So I would guess I would say maybe working in the field of public procurement of IT, and hopefully that'll come through. So in development, one of the there's a sort of a few ideas that are very powerful. So one of the ideas is that you can leapfrog various sunk costs in society. So if we had flying drone buses now, we wouldn't have to build roads, right? And there's a whole sort of series of ideas that with digital we can leapfrog a whole lot of infrastructural costs. It's easy to use, it's cheap, you can get data very quickly, but then you have to want to use that data. So eHealth and digitalization has been a theme in global health development for quite some time. And I was just going to try and give you a very quick schematic about how I think of the phases, at least as I've experienced them going through it. So at the beginning, we sort of had this 1,000 flowers bloom approach. And you had lots and lots of people down in different countries, and they managed to get project money, and they would build something for a project area, a specified number of people, a specified place, and they'd try and make this work. And there'd be a lot of problems with interconnectivity, and there'd be a lot of problems with... And so mainly they were building apps. Some of them had digital PIN cards, others, but mainly it was just sort of apps on the internet. And the problem with it was that it was so popular and it was so possible to do it that you would very quickly get a large number going on in one country. So about 4 years ago, I think Uganda did the survey, and there were 179 different eHealth projects in what's a fairly small country. And the problem with that is it's very easy to say something's a pilot. So we're going to pilot something. And that implies that we're going to do something, we're going to learn from it, and if it's a success, we can take it further, and if it's a failure, we stop it. The problem, it's so easy to say it's a pilot, and the problem is that even good things didn't go further and bad things didn't go further. So the question is, so the Ugandan government said, this is crazy, stop on all eHealth projects, we need a national strategy. So we get to the sort of second part, and donors started to try and support governments to create national strategies, to write kind of strategies, and then hope that everyone would play within that. But the reality is that in many of the countries we're working in, so much of the aid, so much of the health budget comes from aid, and particularly the discretionary budget. So if government has to pay salaries, and that's the large part of health costs, they don't have so much to put elsewhere. So it's still very donor-driven, this field, IT and digital health. But in theory, people were saying, oh, we're part of that strategy. But the problem is the strategies were so big, you could almost do anything you want to and plug it into the strategy. But you got the kind of rise of some key platforms, DHIS2 being one of them. I work with DHIS2, not ashamed to admit it. We'll hear from Jens afterwards. And so you get some sort of products that start to emerge, and they have certain characteristics. They're used in many countries. They're open source. And because they're used for many years, there's this sort of user and developer interface that sort of develops over time. And so these pieces of software graduate. They become more mature. They become more robust. They become more user-friendly. So we get to a notion of systems. And donors have very much pushed the idea of systems. So, for example, in health, you might have one product that was a facility register, and another product which does aggregate data at the health facilities, and another product for medical records, maybe in hospitals, and another product for pushing out SMS messages. And they all have to be interoperable, because you're going to use products like this in different countries, and you're going to have this architecture. So it's this idea of a kind of jigsaw puzzle, and you go down to country and you just stick all these different, your tools will all be fantastic, and they'll all just plug into each other. That totally didn't work. Because it's being developed by donors sitting in Washington or Seattle or stuff, developing what they think are the key products. And then the other problem is the interoperability model. For that to work, you have to be quite rigid about your software. You have to sort of define where you put data in and what kind of data so that the other software can apply to it. So I don't know whether it's common, but at least in this world we use FHIR interoperability standards. But they're very rigid, and what that means is that most of the products that are very, very interoperable in that way of thinking about interoperability are very rigid, so they are kind of drop-down menus. But that's not what countries want. Countries want much more open pieces of software that they can write stuff in and sculpt themselves. They don't want predefined pieces of software off a shelf that they can just use, that determines how to use it. And we've seen that, I think, with many of the platforms that have risen to success, they're much more open. And that means that we have some very bad instances. Certain countries, they're used very badly. In other countries, they may be used very well, but no one uses the data. And in third countries, they're used very well, but they're in kind of silos. So it's not that it's a nirvana, that they're very open, but I think it's a requirement for success. And now we're moving towards an idea of digital infrastructure. And I think the thought behind that is, it is very difficult to work sector by sector by sector and assure that you have a really well thought out national strategic plan in every sector, and then train all the people you need in every sector, and have all the software pieces you need for every sector, and then go down from capital all the way out to these very, very rural areas with very low internet availability or connectivity. So you need to think of it a different way. You need to start thinking about, at the country level, IT should be considered an infrastructure, like a road system. It is not sector specific. And you need to build out your connectivity structure and your points, but also you might want to think about even your software. Maybe your software should be multi-purposed across sectors, so that you don't have to have expert teams for every different sector. And you can cross-fertilize, and you can have enough demand that you could have a training school in that country for all the experts you need across all the different sectors. So there are a whole sort of sets of benefits with the kind of economies of scale arguments, but with the standardization across sector arguments, and with that the issue about local capacity and local expertise. And I just wanted to mention some of the key players that, as I said, kind of rose to significance during this progression of thinking about how to do business. DHS2 is clearly the big one, but they have competition. They're by far not a monopoly, and we have to say that 80% of financing in this field comes from the US. And the US does development very differently than, say, Norway. They're very contractual. They have a number of partners and they contract them to go down to country and do the work. And some of their contractors, so Comcare is a very big player, Open IMIS, Open LMIS, Open MRS. So clearly something about open SRP. So that sort of became popular to call things open. And it's obviously referring to open source. ODK, and then most recently I just wanted to showcase this because you will all have heard of the Indian experiments. So India regarding itself as a mega tech state and reforming its entire social welfare program around technology. So registering people, pushing all of their social security benefits, their payment schemes through tech. And most recently, of course, the rollout, which once they decided to do it has been very impressive on vaccines for COVID. I mean, it's extraordinary the number of people who are vaccinated. So there are some problems. So the first thing, of course, we'll all think about is investment. Where does the money come from? And do you have enough money? And then most players have this kind of project cycle of data to evidence to using evidence to more data. So it's kind of a positive reinforcing cycle for demand. And I just thought I'd turn it around and make it into a negative reinforcing cycle. So you have a problem with data, not enough of it, really bad quality. And then at the national capacity level, do you have the institutions to take that data and turn it into evidence and turn it into policy debate and turn it into decisions? But also, do you have the institutions to really think about architecting your national IT systems? What should you do? What should you choose? Should you just sit there and wait for USAID to come and the UK to come and Norway to come and then all these little projects and Sintef to come and all these little projects and then someone else is paying for them and then you try and bolt them together? Will that give you a national architecture for digital health? And then who's paying for maintenance? So all these donors come and they set something up and then they walk away again. Because, hey, projects last 2, 3, maximum 5 years. What's looking after that? And if you don't have that national capacity, if you don't have champions who can really think about eHealth from a national strategic perspective, how do you get a strategic capacity? How do you get up to higher levels to really say yes and no to the big decisions involved in eHealth, that we're going to invest in eHealth, that we need these kind of institutions, that we're going to go this way or that way? And that cycles back to political will and then the investment issue. And then I put this wiggly arrow in here about donors. So donors come in and they even make the cycle worse because the money is short term. It's very product specific. It's often only part of the country. And they don't feed into the culture of decision making and the understanding of the importance of having domestic institutions take responsibility for some of these decisions. So just to represent this shift towards infrastructure as opposed to apps or then kind of systemic products and training, Norway is supporting something called the Digital Public Goods Alliance, which really comes out of some work driven by Norway, but also with the UN, and it ended up with a big report, I think released in 2018 by the Secretary General, with a roadmap for digital cooperation. And this is something Norway was very much involved with in partnership with a lot of others through the UN. And it really focuses on that development promise of IT that I talked about at the beginning, but also the complexity, also the possibility for loss. And so it says that if we're going to get these benefits, it's important that all actors, including member states and the private sector and other stakeholders, promote open source software, open data, open artificial intelligence models, open standards, open content that adhere to privacy and other applicable international and domestic laws. Do you remember I pointed to that open word that all the systems guys were calling that? Well, it's not surprising, is it? So in my business, the donors have developed a set of 9 principles for digital development. Design with the user, understand the existing ecosystem, design for scale, build for sustainability, be data-driven, use open standards, open data, open source, reuse and improve, address privacy and security, and be collaborative. I just put the website here where you can find that, but that's maintained. And so that's an effort to try and inform donors of the technical issues behind supporting digital development. It's very difficult to comply with these. I think we all look at them and say, that's great, but then all these projects come in and you want to do it and then it's very difficult to comply with it. But they're hard-learned principles. If you don't follow these kinds of principles, even if you end up with a demonstrative success, it doesn't lead to much in the end. And following on from those was a set of digital investment principles. I'm not going to run through all of these, but I would like to point to the quantifying costs, including long-term costs of operating, maintaining, and supporting systems. We have so much experience with hiring a firm to build some products and then getting tied into long-term maintenance and readjustment contracts, and that company's not big enough to really give the support, or it falls apart after a couple of years and it's not there to maintain the software. So that whole notion of so in our business, I think you have to look at the longevity of the provider. If your provider is not there to stay and is not committed to supporting your solutions, you're going to have some problems. And then there's a concept of return development. So I think one of the things that's so attractive about eHealth, as Kostas mentioned, was that if you're doing this sort of development in Africa, why would it just stay in Africa? Why wouldn't it be relevant to Asia? And why not relevant to Norway? So there's this idea in development that you can do stuff and it will come back home and it can be useful at home. And I think in digital it's probably the most tangible. And we've got our first sort of key example. So around COVID, how does this sound compared to the principles I suggested to you? So there's over 150 apps in use in Norway to track the number of COVID cases. tracking the number of COVID cases is clearly a centralized job, right? There's no point in doing it all over the place. Where do most Norwegians go and get their centralized COVID data from? I think it's VG. I think it's the newspapers. It's not one of our big institutes. Because VG would phone up every hospital every week and get the data. DHS2 is used, I think, in 175 communes or something. Well, maybe Jens will tell you afterwards. But anyway, DHS2 has been used. This is the first time DHS2 is used in Norway. This is a piece of software that's been in development since 1994. It's had millions of dollars put into it. It's a pretty robust piece of software. But interestingly, it's also used as the backbone by a number of private providers who are selling products in Norway. And so they've got trust in it. But it also runs the question, what does the state get out of buying a private product for a short-term job? Would they be better off if they were doing public procurement at the national level in relationship with a company or a center that could offer long-term partnership in development? Oops. So I just like, I think there is enormous potential for Norwegian companies and Norwegian products to break out of Norway and to be useful across borders and different places. But I get maybe 20 requests for attention every year. And almost always they're nice ideas and they may even quite elegant software solutions. But no one knows anything about the environments they're suggesting we use them in. And if those principles of understanding sustainability and long-term application and how to finance and support that and understanding local ecosystems, etc., is to be taken seriously. So I would suggest the opportunities are there, but it may require a different approach from how we're seeing most of the requests we're getting from Norwegian partners at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Jens can come. Jens Kosvold, professor from the University of Oslo and also one of the partners from Better eHealth.
Thank you, Kostas. Yeah, I'm wearing 3 hats today. The Better eHealth project and the Department of Informatics, University of Oslo, and the DHIS2 software, which also Austin talked about, which is developed by us in partnership with quite a high number of partners around the world. And as, yeah, I'm not going to repeat you, am I? No. The Digital Public Good Alliance, that's also where we are a member with some of these Indian and other partners. DHIS, to give you some clue, okay, it's an open source software that can be set up for nearly everything in this world. Here it's set up for, let's say, community health workers on her phone, and the interface looks more or less the same as with any Android application, I think. It could also be set up for educational matters or for agriculture, and that has been done in several of our participating countries. And one of our developers also has set it up for his poker score. So it's a general software package. Okay, it can be run through web browsers here and at a clinic for maternal and child health. And kind of a big selling point is the so-called dashboard, where people can see the data from a certain geographical area. Yeah, here Sierra Leone. So this is the display of the statistical data, and it's possible to drill down here to see, okay, this dot here, what exactly does it mean? So this statistical module, the Health Management Information Systems module, is now being used in the countries which you can see on the map there, covering around 2.4 billion people. And no, Norway wasn't there, but you see. Yeah, and it has been developed over the last 15 years, at least this version 2. I mean, there obviously was version 1, which was based on Microsoft and Access, and while version 2 is web-based. So it has grown from around 0 countries to Yeah, see the color there. Yeah, we up here somewhere, this is a number of countries, 70 something. Countries plus Indian state, and one Indian state is something between 50 and 100 million people, so it's more like a country in European terms. And here you can see the funders who have been helping out. Norge, that's the first one, as Austin said. Yeah, the dark black line there is kind of the number of $1 million per year gone into this project. And there was a sharp rise last year because of COVID. Now, how do we manage this around the globe? We develop expertise. We have international master programs that we've been helping setting up, PhD program, and practical training. And there you see the number of people who have been through these types of educations. For instance, the master programs are located in those countries. And then we collaborate with partners, consultancy companies, yeah, in the countries where you can see marked on this map. So this is kind of our partners to a large extent. We are kind of servicing the Ministry of Health, first of all, but normally we have to go through consultancy companies who actually do the work, the local ones. Yeah. So what happened last year? Well, there came a suspected COVID case into Sri Lanka, 27th of January. And then 2 days later, our partners there in Sri Lanka set up a COVID tracing system in the EHiS to track the incoming passengers, because there were many tourists from China, Russia coming into Sri Lanka. So it took 2 days to make this app. And then what else happened? Well, COVID was spreading, and we found out, hey, we need to have a more global one, so we built on the Sri Lanka, and we gathered people, and luckily we had some people in Ghana at that point from various countries around the world, and brought those, let them sit there for 1 more week, and made a global version of this Sri Lanka package, which could be then adapted anywhere, taking care of the WHO regulations and so on. So there was a timeline starting 25th of January with WHO starting up, and Sri Lanka 29th of January. Some technical guidelines from WHO 28th of February, and we had that tool ready by 11th of March. And then the pandemic was declared 12th of March. And okay, a hackathon in Sri Lanka, well. Then something happened in Norway in March and April. The municipalities, they were a bit tired of paper and pen. So they tried to figure out a digital solution. And they also looked at ours. So 19th of April, they decided to use DHIS2 for COVID tracing in Norwegian municipalities, called the Fiks smittesporing app. Yeah, then it spread 36 countries and so on, and now also as a vaccination system. So this is the municipality version of the COVID tracing system. This is particularly a Klyng identifications dashboard. I hope some of you knows what it is. I'm not too sure. Yeah. Okay. So this is now used in around 130 municipalities, and well, we have a company who has a stall 20 meters over there, a private company who built some software on top of the DHIS2 also for the same purpose. And that is used in approximately the same amount, a number of municipalities in Norway. So covering the majority of them. Yeah. Now, what happened then? Well, Aftenposten said that Norwegian computer tool makes Sri Lanka in front and in front of Norway when it comes to tracing COVID. En av verdens fattigste land, men sammenlignet med Norge har de en langt mer effektiv smittesporing av koronaviruset. Så dette skrev av Aftenposten, and I'm built on DHS2 and the global network. Yeah, and what's happening with it now? Yes, it's still there, kind of maintained, developed, and adapted. It's not really happening so much in Oslo, but at this place in Nord-Gudbrandsdal. Yeah, so fix smittesporing. Well, they have a platform, they have some functions, indeksen, nærkontakt, klynge, overføringshistorikk. And then the important thing is to be interoperable with many other databases. Folkehelseinstituttet and folkeregisteret fra skatteetaten to get the personal data right into the app. And then for also travel authorities and for people to register themselves and so on. So it has become kind of a web of data going back and forth between these registers. Yeah, so now that DHS COVID system is used in these 41 countries for surveillance. And yeah, here is an example of what's going on in Uganda, port of entry screening and travel pass printing, which this app does. Although it is adapted, it's possible to add some more functionality, and that is what I've done then in Uganda to print something. So it's a flexible system. So in the end there, what could Norway then learn from Sri Lanka? Well, free software, international support. And how does that compare to what Norway is normally doing? I think you know better than I do there. I just read some newspapers now and then and see that we buy electronic medical record systems from the US to a large extent. Yeah, now it's a platform which can be adapted quite easily, at least for all these primary health purposes that includes COVID. It's not really intended for intensive care units, and it wouldn't work there. So you need something else in those type of units, but it could be used in most applications in the health sector. Then why did they use it in Sri Lanka? Well, they already had the system, they had the expertise, and it took the expertise 2 days to set up the COVID tracking system. So since they had the software, they had the people, piece of cake basically. And then they made one joint system, one joint solution for the whole of Sri Lanka. Okay, now you might say that Sri Lanka is a small country, only 20 million people or so, while Norway is huge, 350x municipalities. So obviously we couldn't do the same, could we? So it seemed to kind of work very quickly there, based on the factors that, okay, it was free, international support. Yeah, I mean, we provide support when needed. It's easily adaptable, and people know it. And it's already there. I mean, they had the database installed. They could just add something on top of it. So That's what I bring back as lessons. Yeah. I should have had a long reference list since I come from the academia. But no, not really. But I'm sure that some of you have missed something else. So I'll bring you a big one. A bullet point. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself.
Okay, good afternoon. I am Sheggau Mengiste. I come from University of Southeast Norway, School of Business. I'm an associate professor and also I'm a partner for Better eHealth project. So my presentation today is about eHealth capacity building in the context of Africa and some experiences from Ethiopia. Basically, as Davis indicated, when we talk about capacity building, it might not only refer to human resource, but it can be about infrastructure, it can be about resources, it can be about money, but my focus will be on the human resource capacity building and the challenges. So as it's presented by the previous presenters, there are lots of challenges in sub-Saharan Africa, including Ethiopia actually, in terms of the burden of disease and shortage of healthcare workers. And eHealth or digital health has a huge potential actually in addressing human resource related challenges through distance education, telemedicine, computerized health information system, but there are few people that have the competency and the qualification to do the job. So the need for capacity building in eHealth, particularly in the context of eHealth in Africa, is a key factor to achieve digital transformation initiatives in most of the African countries. But in order to use eHealth initiatives, as it was presented previously, there are several initiatives by the donors, and the donors have their own priorities, and governments do not have strategies, eHealth strategies, particularly the political will to invest the scarce resources for human resource capacity development or to achieve eHealth related initiatives is really a big challenge. So especially the widespread poverty leaves governments with small budgets to invest on eHealth initiatives, and there are also questions on the potential benefits of eHealth, particularly if eHealth is a solution, which aspect of it will provide the most value for developing countries. So is it a computerized district health information system, or is it improved supply chain system, or hospital information system, or whatever applications that donors are bringing? Or is it kind of a system that provides an ecosystem or a solution to the entire ecosystem of healthcare delivery in the African context? So whatever the answer, sustainability of any eHealth initiative in Africa will be largely dependent on a skilled workforce to implement, use, support, and maintain those initiatives, those programs. So giving this as an overview, I would like to bring some examples on eHealth capacity building from the Ethiopian context. What we are doing actually in partnership with other universities in Norway and universities in Ethiopia, we are focusing in human resource capacity building initiatives. And I'll present a couple of cases that are basically intended to strengthen the capacity of the participating higher education institutions in Ethiopia and to contribute to the socio-economic and human development of the country, particularly in the scientific field of health informatics and the practice of e-health capacity building through international collaboration and partnership. So the first example that I would like to bring is the search project, which is an example of e-health research and education capacity development. It is funded by DIKU Norpart, the Norwegian government, and started in 2019. And it is a bilateral kind of collaboration project with two universities in Norway, University of Southeast Norway and University of Oslo. EHiN is also a partner there. So we try to provide international student mobility between one university, University of Gondar, and University of Southwest Norway and University of Oslo. So we try to, or we kind of introduce globally relevant interdisciplinary collaboration and partnership for education, research, and innovation in the domain of e-health and information technology. So we conducted joint curriculum development activities on digitization and innovation in e-health, joint student supervision, and joint high-quality action research. So basically, this program includes 58 student exchange, both from Norway to Ethiopia and from Ethiopia to Norway. 46 master students. Actually, students coming to Norway can participate in coursework, and also professors can collaborate in co-supervision of students. And 21 from USN or UIO to University of Gondar, and 25 students from University of Gondar to USN and University of Oslo. Also 12 PhD exchange. We also try to revise 4 curriculums on e-health, actually, in collaboration with professors from Norway and Ethiopia. So we also plan to write 20 jointly written papers, and where we are now so far. So we conducted in 2019, actually we conducted joint seminars and workshops. We also conducted joint curriculum development activities, also established student routines for student mobility, and we actually started student exchange, both masters and PhD, and in 2019, 2 master students were in Norway and 1 PhD student. So there was also course and credits approval, joint paper writing. We managed to write 2 papers actually in 2019. Then 2020, at least there was a challenge, of course, due to COVID, but there was, we managed to achieve 4 master and 1 PhD student mobility, and 3 papers were published. In 2021, actually 22 PhD students were in Norway, and one of the students graduated, actually defended his thesis, his PhD thesis, while he was here. So basically, this program provided an opportunity for a lot of students or a lot of faculty members who will be the future, actually, trainers and employees of health information system initiatives in the context of Ethiopia. So we provide opportunity, and also we share experiences, we share knowledge, and that is the best way, actually, to build local capacity through this kind of initiative. So the other project that we have is the Nurture project, which is funded by NORHED 2 scheme by NORAD, and it's an example of effective collaboration in e-health capacity development. It's a north-south-south collaboration or partnership, and it started in 2021, April, and actually it's still a new project, but it has 5 objectives. At least we are aiming to build capacity through scholarship programs again for young teaching staff and researchers through master and PhD exchange programs. There are 45 MSc students that are planned to be included or to benefit from this program. And also 15 PhD students will take part in the exchange. Another objective is to develop new interdisciplinary master's and PhD programs in eHealth, informatics, and applied education, applied technology, and education. So basically, we are working on 4 new master, 3 master programs and 1 PhD program. Actually, the PhD program is in informatics, and 3 master's program on eHealth, information systems, and applied technology. The third objective is to establish interdisciplinary research teams across partner universities. There are 5 partner universities in Ethiopia and 3 partners in Norway. University of Oslo and eHealth Research, the Norwegian eHealth Research Institute is also part of it, and University of South Norway is the main partner in Norway. We also aim to improve employability of graduates through co-creation seminars, bootcamp seminars, because unemployment is the main problem in the Ethiopian context. So we are aiming actually to provide some soft skills for the graduates through co-creation seminars and bootcamp seminars. So we also aim to improve access to education and better supporting for female students and disadvantaged groups. We are trying to develop actually systems, technologies that can support disadvantaged groups and to provide gender equality in academic programs. The third example that can be considered as an initiative to build capacity, human resource capacity, is the Better eHealth project. Kostas already presented about this project, but we are synchronizing and actually integrating the initiatives of Better eHealth with other projects, so that to provide opportunity for eHealth workers, for teachers and trainers on eHealth competency and knowledge. So as you may see here in the work package, human resource capacity, the human factors is one of the important components of this project. So we are working also in providing opportunity for younger researchers, academicians, and also there are a lot of partners in this project from Africa and from Europe, and the experiences, the expertise, and the knowledge of all these can contribute in bringing better opportunity and better competency for the future workforce in eHealth. And capacity building in Africa actually requires collaboration, partnership from different countries. Norway is playing significant role in doing that, but how we manage locally and how we coordinate the activities is very, very important. I can give you one example. In Ethiopia, for example, there are 53 universities, and from those 53 universities, there are only few that provide eHealth education at a bachelor, master's, or PhD level. One of those universities is the University of Gondar. So the eHealth program that was initiated or that started at University of Gondar was actually an effort by the support of NORAD, actually with the NOMA project and with the support of University of Oslo. So that was the pioneer, and that gives an opportunity actually to start eHealth education in Ethiopia. Then that expertise, now they have until PhD program. Actually, they are providing even a PhD program, but they are working or they are providing competency skill to other universities in curriculum development, in training workforces, and also the partnership that we had with the Search or Nurture project is already part of that initiative, and University of Gondar is playing significant role. So my point is, eHealth capacity building, especially in the context of human capacity building, we can really contribute much by providing opportunity and by introducing partnership programs like the programs that I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Sugao. And Dilis Larbi from the Norwegian Center for Health Research.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be brief because I think our time is almost up. Yes, so I'll just present a few collaboration activities of the Norwegian Center for eHealth Research. Just 3. We do have a lot of collaboration activities, but because of time, I'll just present 3, and I'll probably just rush to the last one, which is the Better eHealth project. So we have several collaborations with several organizations in Europe and other continents. And at the Norwegian Center for eHealth Research, the research we do is based on these themes. For lack of time, I'll just not mention them. And we are also a WHO collaborating center for digital health and telemedicine. And the activities we do for the WHO as a WHO collaborating center include providing telemedicine and e-health advice to WHO and its member states, supporting WHO and its member states in identifying and developing an evidence base on telemedicine and e-health use, and contributing to telemedicine and e-health knowledge generation and dissemination. We also help to facilitate and develop e-health learning programs as a means for health system capacity building. Another project that we have is also a project that is funded by the European Economic Area, which is mainly to reduce social health inequalities in Poland. So that's regardless of the residence or social background of the people in Poland, they can have access to health services. And the project aims to develop these 7 models within these areas. And we are going to contribute to this project by sharing competence and research and providing resources in working groups. So the Norwegian Center for eHealth Research is one of 6 European organizations in the consortium, Better eHealth Consortium, as Kostas mentioned earlier. And as the Norwegian, as a center, we are the leaders for the Work Package 3, which aims to address the issues related to human factors in eHealth development and implementation. So the center will contribute to this project by coordinating the task in Work Package 3, which include stakeholder analysis, user-centeredness and sustainability, stakeholder involvement in eHealth development, and access to eHealth and universal access. So we have conducted the stakeholder analysis, and the main finding, probably the most interesting finding, is that the professional associations or organizations and the patient associations were not really involved in the development of the eHealth strategies and policies in those countries. And that is quite interesting because they are the main end users of these eHealth services and solutions that are supposed to be introduced in the country. And then we also, as a center, we are also going to perform a review of eHealth policies in African lower and lower middle income countries, which we have started. And this would be basically based on the 7 components as identified by the World Health Organization and the International Telecommunications Union. And also we'll contribute to this project by sharing competence and knowledge. Thank you, and if you have any questions, you can contact me at this email.
Thank you. I would thank you all. I would say that this might be a side effect of coronavirus, that when we have a physical audience, we have so much to say that there is no time for a discussion maybe. But maybe if you have any questions, we have time to discuss them. I would say thank you. It has been very interesting presentations, which answered many of the things that I had thought that we could discuss today, or we have decided that we could discuss today. We saw Austin giving us some ideas on where the future of eHealth system is in lower and lower middle income countries, and that we move towards infrastructure, isn't it? And I also saw very interesting this circle you presented where the donors had an important role there. I didn't understand if your point is that it's disturbing or helping, but it is very central. And that's also what we see in our discussions and in the context of the Ministry for Health, that donors play an important role there. But when, as you say, that we go towards we need to build the national capacities to work with this data and improve the system. We also see that that maybe this is our project contributing. We're not, as SINTEF, you mentioned SINTEF, if we go there and tell them what to do. We don't do that. We the European partners, we don't go there and tell them what to do. We try to connect them with each other. So instead of having the capacity in their own ministry necessarily, they can exchange information with each other. They can build regional networks. And that's another thing that we saw, for example, in Northern Africa. Tunisia talking with the other countries on how they could solve together problems. And meetings, workshops organized by Better Health, inspiring them to talk more together on how to transfer health data across countries, because there's used to be a lot of mobility across those countries. But also we discussed about, Jens presented in a very interesting way what Norway could learn from the African countries. You presented how DHS was used and was ready there as a tool that could also Norway use earlier maybe. But it's also very interesting that it's used now, and also there is companies that built on that. And this is a positive thing to my understanding. And Sega, thank you for also presenting the capacity building activities that you've been involved in. And when you talk about Better Health, we don't have so much like capacity building initiatives, but it's mostly the experience you have, and Jens and you, in capacity building that is the important here. And the University of Gondar and University of Jima, those connecting these initiatives, making them more visible for the Ethiopian government, but also for the other governments to work more in these things and build capacity. Because what is eHealth if you don't have the people to develop it, to use it, and maybe we should also build the capacity on the users to demand to know what to demand. And Dilis, you didn't have much time to present, but you have developed a lot of understanding of the stakeholder needs. And it's very important what you're saying about the users not being involved. And it's, as an answer to this, I take what Austin presented earlier, that donors demand that the systems or eHealth or digital systems are designed around the user and involve the user. And that's what we are trying in our project also to do with eHealth policy, that is, they involve users, and we also we will try to empower the users to know again how important is their voice and what to demand. I'm sorry we don't have time for the discussion. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming.